Whoa, whoa, ho. It's the illusion reporting from somewhere on spaceship Earth. Yeah, Sober Wednesday, yo. We're here. It's the last Sober Wednesday of October. October, dude. Coming to a quick end here. And we're here. We're here to sober up or be sober, stay sober, get sober, see what it is. Anyway, let me open this up with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The wisdom to know the difference. All right. I'm still feeling a little like under the weather, but that's okay. I'm gonna just read the I think I'm down with the promises today, dude. I'm feeling like on a promises run. President accounted for, Supernova, Dan Z, hello. Drowning Monday, checking in, Supernova, welcome. All right. So as the preamble, this is a stream dedicated to the solution for the problems we put in the way of our spiritual liberation, right? So many of us put an obstacle in front of us and our relationship with the God of your own understanding: food, drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, anger, frustration, whatever it is. And the reason we put that between us and our spiritual relationship with God is because it's painful down here, and we have yet to self-realize and look in the mirror and make peace with ourselves. So with that said, that is the solution, is to put down what we are using to block ourselves from looking at ourselves, so that we can turn to a spiritual solution, which will liberate us from our own personal dilemmas. And with that said, I'm going to read a little bit from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not an AA meeting, not affiliated with AA or having anything to do with AA. This is just me reading a little bit that I find useful for you. And so I'm going to read the promises on page 83. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see that our own experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness, self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. The promises, man. Yeah. Here we are, man. Here we are. BB's going through a breakup. Yeah, we're getting there, PMI. We're going to get way there when the light changes. So here we are. I've been thinking a lot about what it really is. Grateful to be here with all of you this moment. Right on, Supernova. Stoked you're here too. Is is it truly is the dilemma of our reality is making peace with ourselves. Like it really is. That's no bumper sticker. That's no simple statement. There is no simple way to state the depth of what that means, right? Making peace with yourself and learning to forgive yourself for who the other side of you is, right? And I've I've had a number of experiences recently where part of making peace with yourself is the ability to not react when attacked. Like when the slings and arrows come at you, to be able to stand on your feet in your space and just allow the slings and arrows to just go right past you and have the confidence to know that they're going to go right past you because nobody has ever slung more slings and arrows than you have to yourself, right? Like nobody's ever been nobody's ever truly harmed me but myself. And you could argue that some of that other people have done various things to oneself over the course of their life, but I've always been the one who put myself in those predicaments. At a certain point, you do become an adult, and you have to make peace with the pre-adult life and the post-adult life. You know, and I think when you become an adult, though you didn't have any choice about what goes on in your youth, your pre-adult life, your adult life is about you choosing to make peace with it, choosing to accept it for what it is and not allowing it to attack you anymore. And because I think a lot of things go on to people when they don't have any say about it. And there is a certain part of our lives, especially in the United States, where for all intents and purposes, someone else is running the show, be it your parents, the state, whatever it is. And then at 18, this magical day occurs and you suddenly get to be an adult. And I think for a lot of people, we don't actually like accept that fictitious line till later in our life. And it's usually when I can say in the case of that is sort of one of the things with getting sober is like you got to become an adult. And I think that the lifestyle pre-sobriety is a sort of stunted evolution into adulthood. Because when you're loaded, like when you're out in the thing, part of the situation is that you're blaming the world or the people or incidents that have occurred in your life for your problem, dude. And part of getting sober is accepting that you're solely responsible for your life and what you do to your life and what has occurred in your life and how you deal with it. And so when we get to this point in our life where we're finally ready to accept ourselves as adults, there's this huge level of growth that occurs because up until that point, like right, if step one is we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Well, why is your life unmanageable? And why are you powerless? And I think it's because of we're still behaving in the childlike mind. They say that when you start using drugs and alcohol in the development of your brain, that you kind of stunt your emotional growth, right? You sort of I probably started getting stoned at like 13, 14, 13, 14, maybe something like that. I'd have to really deep dive to think about. Let's just say it's 13. They say that like that's where your emotional growth stops when you first start taking drugs and using alcohol. So imagine all of a sudden like you get sober and in my case I was 40 when I got sober, right? I got essentially like 27 years of emotional growth that I have to take care of in a relatively short time frame just to sustain moving forward in sobriety. Like I think that is why you really do need to work with others and have a sponsor and go through the steps and be accountable and all that kind of stuff. If you choose the 12-step method, is because you go from this emotionally childlike state to all of a sudden accepting your adult reality. And that I think is overwhelming for most people, is to suddenly like realize at some sort of point in your adult life that you've got to become an adult. And the whole time you've thought you were an adult, but you didn't really behave like an adult, because like an adult's the number one mission of being an adult is taking responsibility for yourself and operating within the system that is around you as a fully responsible individual, dude, and not blaming everything for your end results of your actions, right? And I do think that that's part of this growth curve in our lives, getting sober, that really doesn't get a lot of like direct spotlight on it. But I think that is like really what's going on many levels, and why many people fail to get sober is because taking responsibility for yourself is a daunting task, especially when you've spent most of your adult life at that point abdicating your authority to other realities, i.e., drugs, which led you to the court system, which led you into bad marital setups or bad relationships or bad debt contracts or anything like that. So you spend most of your adult life living in the confines of childlike contracts that you've entered with the world, and then you're pissed about it because like, why do I got to live in this like compressed captive state? And it appears to be that it's all these outside things, but like at the end of the day, like the cops never came and arrested me unless I was asking for it. Even when I was an activist, I was still like directly asking for it. But I mean, besides that kind of stuff, the cops never came and like hassled me for any other reason except that like I was behaving like a child, doing childlike stupid stuff, dude. And then you get kind of sober and you learn how to talk to the people in the front funny outfits. Because that's what I realized when I got sober, was that all the police were, and the sheriffs and the cops were people in funny outfits that no longer had any authority over me, because I didn't grant them any authority over me, because I wasn't doing anything that warranted them having authority over me. You get what I'm saying? Is once I stopped living as a malcontent, and you could argue like I wasn't up to anything. Like when I was loaded, I wasn't stealing or breaking like the big laws, but yeah, I from the time I was 13 till I got sober at 40, dude, I was constantly had marijuana in my system, THC in my system, operating motor vehicles. I constantly had alcohol in my system, operating motor vehicles. So by default, the cops always had a reason to bring the hammer down on me. I wasn't behaving as a citizen. And then, out of the vehicle, I would be like engaging in drunken activity or drug induced activity that allowed them to have an input into my life. Like I opened the door to it. And then I got sober and I closed that door. And I can tell you, since for like 16 years, I haven't had any like real negative reaction with the police or law enforcement. And when I've had to interact with it, it has been one under mutual respect. Like I got arrested down at the riots in Los Angeles doing my live streaming. I didn't have any issue with that. Like again, as an adult entering a situation with a known law enforcement presence, I took that risk. And so I didn't have any animosity with the authority. And I think that's part of getting sober is as I enter contracts willingly with various entities by free will. I think that most of my adult life, from the time I turned 18 till I got sober, I had been forced into contracts by my own incompetence, i.e. my drugs and alcohol and my sort of just lackluster like lifestyle, in the sense of like I was unaware of the rules of the road, right? And so things tended to pile up in the corner of my life, and I, as being I, refusing to take responsibility to myself, viewed those things that were piling up in my life as the system attacking me. The system's attacking me. If only they wouldn't attack. They got it out for me. I remember I got pulled over in Pony, Arizona, I think, off of the Interstate 40 there. I was driving back to LA from Flagstaff, and I was speeding in my little truck. I got pulled over by an Arizona state trooper in Pony, Arizona. It's out in the middle of nowhere, dude. And I got pulled over, and the cop like searched my stuff. He found my little weed box, and I had a little teeny piece of leaf in there, dude. And he's like, "I'm throwing the book at you." And I remember being super like horrified. And then he was writing me a ticket. I was sitting in the squad car with him, and he's like, he was like, he had this thing, and we were talking, and he's like, "What did you expect?" I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You got a marijuana leaf sticker in your car. You got stickers on your cars with drug references, and you're broadcasting this signal to the outside world that you are engaging most likely in what I, as a law enforcement official monitoring the roads, would consider criminal activity. And so what do you expect from me, man?" And I remember having this conversation with this sheriff, and it's only till later in life did I truly understand what he was telling me. And that's the thing was he a total a-hole and reading me the riot act and like jamming me up? Absolutely. But then again, I wasn't an innocent. I was speeding down the freeway stoned. like okay. But if you had asked me at that time what was going on, I would have been like, that dude's a douche, and he's abusing his authority, and this and that and this and that, because I refused to take any responsibility for myself at that thing. I thought I was, as an entitled stoner, I thought I was entitled to operate a vehicle stoned anywhere I wanted. And who are you to say anything? Because I had yet to understand the responsibility I take as an individual. And I think that that's what I'm getting at with when you become an adult, like I have to take responsibility. It is my responsibility to know what the rules of the roads are, for example. It's my responsibility to know what the authority is based upon, right? And as we move forward into this thing, I do realize more and more that there is this ultimate responsibility I have as a sober individual to take responsibility for everything that is occurring in my life. And some, like, listen, I got this giant issue going on with my accountant and the IRS right now. Like, yeah, my accountant's doing me dirty, dude. But the key word is it's my accountant. It's not. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm not the one blowing it, but then again, I'm not a victim either. And I think that like when you get sober, like part of the process is de-victimizing yourself and being like, you know what, like this is my problem. And it's up to me to solve it, dude. Yeah, my accountant's doing me dirty, but then again, it's my accountant. They didn't, you get what I'm saying? So when I look at it, it makes it a much easier situation to deal with. I guess that's what I'm getting at is like when you really take responsibility for all these things that are going on in your life, and sometimes they are utter failures and other times they're utter victories. So you don't get to claim the victory and be like, oh, look at me, I got the victory, this is fantastic, without being like, this is my failure and this sucks, dude. Like, right? And I think that is the childlike mind to only take responsibility when it goes your way instead of when it goes against you. And I think for me, a lot of the learning curve in my sobriety has not been the ability to accept the things when they go my way, is being able to accept the things when they don't go my way and being like, no, dude, this didn't go my way because I am actively participating in it. Like, yeah, like when the Woolsey fire happened, I didn't burn down my house. Like I didn't start the fire in over on the other side of the mountain that came and burned my house down. But I was the one who took responsibility of what I was going to do after my house burned down, right? I was the one who got to stand there and choose, am I a victim or am I a warrior? Is this something that's going to crush me? Or is this something that's going to make me into a better human being? And I chose to go with I'm going to be a better human being from this experience. And I still know many people who were in the same exact circumstances as me in 2018 that are still living the victim narrative card, and whining about it. But me, like I truly do at this stage of the game realize that nothing has happened to me or happening to me without my consent. And sometimes it doesn't seem like I have consent in these things. Like I didn't consent to my accountant not filing my taxes 2 weeks ago. I didn't consent, but what I do have consent over is my response to it. And my response can be one of vitriol, anger, frustration, threats, all of these things. Or my response can be one of like, okay, this is happening to teach me how, once again, to stand in my own personal space and register my mental, emotional, and spiritual state, not based upon the information coming in, but the information I'm broadcasting out. And that's what I mean about like taking responsibility for yourself is I can be getting bombarded by all sorts of lame things. But if I just rebroadcast the lame things and amp it up, that's not a very sober thing to do. My job is to absorb the negative information and transform it into a positive outgoing signal. And that's where like I'm 100% in charge. And again, is the reason I'm in charge is because I'm letting God run the show. But when I'm letting God run the show, it's because like I'm willing to like make that situation morph from one of negativity to one of positivity. And it's no easy task because I want to always like fall back into like, why is this happening to me? And I think that used to be an early sobriety trope, and over time it's faded into something that where I'm like, okay, it's not happening to me, it's just happening. And the part that I'm in total control of is how I respond to it, and trying to figure out how not to dig the hole deeper, right? Because I can easily pick up the shovel and start digging deeper. I can start like with my accountant, for example. Like I could have started sending out threatening emails and this and that, but I didn't. I'm working with my accountant, and dealing with it, as annoying and frustrating as it is I really haven't let it get on top of me. I don't like it. It's a giant, it sucks, but I'm not living in the suck, dude, because I know what the suck is. I've talked a lot about how, like, it's all about living with the suck and turning the suck into something good, dude. And so when we sit here in this level of the thing, is like, yeah, like the concept of like taking a drink, that is such a long gone idea or solution or need or reaction to what's going on. Is that in sobriety, it is totally like I am solely responsible for how I react. That's the only thing I can be responsible for. Everything else is just chaos, dude. Everything outside of my own little hula hoop is chaos. Like the world is chaos. The whole thing is chaos. So with that said, is who do I get to be in the world of chaos? Do I get to be another component of chaos, or do I get to be the calm? Do I get to be in the calm? And the more and more I realize that the answer to defeating the chaos is the calmness, dude, is not to react in a negative way. And I don't mean that as a doormat either. Like, I think a lot of people think that you got to be a doormat about it and just like take it on the chin. I go, no, I don't believe in the doormat idea of it. But I do believe that you can assert your authority from a kind and loving perspective, mainly for yourself. Because if you're going to assert your authority and it's going to be the dark energy that you haven't made peace with, that's dirty energy. Like, I'm fully in tune with my darkness, right? That's part of the sober thing, is I'm responsible for how dark I want to go, right? And I don't necessarily want to be that at this stage of my life. I think it serves a purpose. I can tap into it. I've had to tap into it recently and get very much centered in my dark capabilities, my ability to inflict pain and suffering, and be willing to inflict pain and suffering for what are valid reasons. And so, but I don't need to act on it. I just need to know that they're there as tools. Just like I got pliers and hammers in my garage, just like I've got, a car jack in my car, dude, is I don't actually need to use any of them. I just need to know they're there. Just need to go make sure they're there. So I do think that the key component to sobriety is taking full responsibility for yourself. And that is part of the trick, dude. So that was my preamble right there. Let's see what's going on in the chat, dude. Getting pedantic over here. Yo, illusion. is repping the Lego shirt today. That's right, dude. Justin, howdy, brother. Hams and fams, dude. Super nut. I wish I could be calm. Yeah, it's a practice. Being calm is a practice, dude. It's a constant. You know what it is it's trial and error. It's being uncalm so many times and not getting the result you ultimately wanted, that you do realize that how to use your authority without being uncalm. Like, there are times that, like, you need to absolutely establish your authority, but you can do it in a calm, sober manner. And I think that's the key, is being able to assert your most gnarly authority without it being outside of the scope of being sober. Because we can get really unsober really quickly. And unsober is losing your mind and flipping out and causing more trouble for yourself, right? Anything that's causing more trouble in your life that comes from the result of your action is lack of sobriety, dude. So dirty energy does serve a purpose, but you can clean that dirty energy. That's what I'm trying to say, dude. Is what I'm going through right now. Being calm, stoked, because you don't need to prove anything. That's right. That's the thing, right? We don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. When you truly get sober, the only thing you need to know at the end of the day is, who are you? And what were you willing to, like, where did you compromise yourself? Because I don't think that anyone truly wants to compromise themselves. I think that is one of the things that leads us to the predicament that makes us feel less than, right? Is when we compromise ourselves, we compromise everything, dude. It's not like I think, you know how they say that there can be no darkness if there's light. I think compromising ourselves is sort of like that. I don't think we just compromise a little bit of ourselves. I think when we compromise ourselves even slightly, we compromise ourselves entirely, dude. I don't think there's like half measures of compromise. I think any compromising of your integrity is a full compromise. And I think compromise is an interesting word, because, like, you need to be able to, like, compromise in the negotiation of a contract, for example. Like, you do need to be able to, like, compromise. But I think when we're talking about compromise in the spiritual setting, it has to do with our integrities, dude. And I think that when we lash out on people, when we take other people hostage, when we make other people the scapegoat for our victimizing them, we have compromised ourselves. And I don't think there's any middle ground of that. I think it's all, and I think that's why that is something we have to be very wary of in sobriety, is what we are doing with our powers. Because I really believe this. I hate to use the word believe. I really do understand that part of our journey as sober is learning how to use our power and our strength, not as a weapon, but as a tool to benefit the whole, right? Because, like, the main point of being of service, the main point of a godly relationship is to be of service, right? We're supposed to be of service. And we can't be of service if we're wielding our power and our authority as a weapon. It can be a defensive weapon. Absolutely. We need to defend our castle. We need to defend our integrity, and we need to defend ourselves, because we're not doormats. But I think part of the journey is learning how to use our tools. Floyd, thank you, dude. Sobriety from pride and ego trip is tough. Yeah, dude. It really. Orchard, I know you say this isn't AAA meet, but the 7th tradition fiber. Thank you, Orchard. I appreciate that. In that sense, still waiting on that sewing machine review tutorial. Got one just like it. The one behind you, illusion. Okay. I should get that thing going, dude. Preach, brother. Carlos. Yeah. And that's the balance we are, because in the beginning, right? In the beginning, it really is just not putting the substances in our bodies. Right. Because I think, and when they say, like, I don't know if you've heard it or you understand this, there's something said the obsession's been removed. Like, in the beginning, dude, like drugs and alcohol are such a part of our life that we don't really know another way forward. And so we have to battle the allergy of the body, the obsession of the mind, and the spiritual malady, right? And then at some point, if you're doing it the right way, the obsession is removed. You don't obsess about it. It's not something that you're going to use as a tool to alleviate your painful situation, which could just be that you woke up that day, right? Like some days it's just waking up is like, oh my goodness, like what is this, dude? So I think in the first phase of it, like that's the only target you need. The only thing you need to do in the beginning is not drink and use no matter what. It's not about authority and sovereignty and dealing with the darkness and wielding your sword and any of that kind of stuff. I think in the first level of sobriety, it is just nuts and bolts. Don't drink no matter what. And in order for us not to drink and use no matter what, we go to a lot of meetings. We get a sponsor, we get commitments, because in the beginning, that's really all your goal needs to be, is just learning how not to drink and drug in your daily life so that you can get to a point where the obsession's been removed. And then once the obsession's been removed, you start getting into all these deeper layers of what it is to be sober. So I think, like, where this talk today has been is that this is a dude talking from a perspective of 16 years of sobriety, right? Like 16 years later, I can sit here and talk about like wielding my authority and all these lofty ideas. But if you're 2 days into this thing, you don't need to worry about that, dude. You just need not to drink and use no matter what. You might need to go make some trouble, dude, right? Like you might still need to go do these actions that at this stage of the game, I'm not really doing anymore. Like I didn't stop yelling at the person on the other side of the credit card company or the bank. I guess I didn't have a credit card till I didn't have a credit card till I was like 5 years sober. So who was I yelling at? People at the bank, right? I didn't stop yelling at people at the bank, for the first 2 or 3 years of sobriety, dude, right? Because they're just on the other end of the phone. Like that took time to develop, dude. That took me having to make a lot of amends. That's why that process of making amends is sort of the next stage after you've gotten used to a lifestyle where you're not sucking down 12 packs and ripping bong hits and snorting big old lines of something. You get to a place where like now you're taking corrective measures. You're taking daily inventories. You're seeing where you stepped on other people's toes and you're making it correct. And you do that long enough. You have to turn the car around enough times and go back and apologize to someone and make amends to someone. You kind of learn that that's not what you want to be doing with your time. Like how many times do you want to have to turn the car around and go apologize to the cashier because you were an a-hole, dude? And it's still stuff I got to do to this day because I can be really rude sometimes. Even though I know to use the name tags and this and that, like all that stuff, I can still, at this stage of the game, still step on other people's toes, man. And I get this, people are like, what's the big deal? But it is a big deal. See, my sobriety depends upon me not making wreckage anymore. It is. And I learned that early on in the game. Like my sobriety is contingent upon how I feel about my life at the end of the day. If at the end of the day, I have a bunch of wreckage in my life, I don't want to wake up with that in the morning. Because that for sure will doom me the next day. That's why we go through the 10th step at the end of the day, dude. The daily inventory. In the beginning, you just like, now I can just do it in my mind. But in the beginning, you do have to do a daily inventory because you don't want to wake up with a bunch of garbage on your plate and wake up and be like, oh, I got to go apologize to that cashier I was rude to yesterday because I got to go buy my groceries again today, dude. You get what I'm saying? Like we learn to handle it in the moment we're in because we don't want to get loaded. Like, that's what I mean. If you don't want to drink and use again, then you do these things that are super potent to preventing that and as a necessary action. And one of those is cleaning up the wreckage, dude. And we all make wreckage, dude. I don't care how sober you are. I don't care how many decades you've been sober. We make wreckage. We are human beings. That's what we do. We make trouble, dude. We make all sorts of crazy decisions and we step on all sorts of people's toes. Yes. Do I slam my heel on people's toes? No. Do I lightly step on their toes? Yes, but I still step on toes, man. You know what I mean? And that's where it gets to be like you live in this like dynamic of solution, dude. All right. Anywho, right on. Thank you, John Smith. The fire pit. Anyhow, I think I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna wrap this up now. Is like I said, I'm not feeling the greatest, dude. I've been battling the false transitional body flu, but doing pretty good. It's not really wearing me down that much, but I do feel it right now. So anyway, listen, man, if you're thinking about self-deleting, whatever you do, don't do that. That is not a solution. Whatever overwhelming situation you are in that may seem like self-deleting is an option, I can tell you it's not. Not because like I know your predicament, but that I've lived enough of my life now with overwhelming circumstances to know that we can get through it, man. It may not seem like it, dude, but we can get through almost anything. And that's why we need a tribe of people around us. That's why, like, I highly advise if you're newly getting sober, you go plug in with a group of people that understand your language, which is some more sober people. And like I said, if you're going to self-delete, make a call. There's all sorts of help out there for you. And there's all sorts of people that want to help, dude. We're not alone, dude. I know we are technically all alone, no matter what. It doesn't matter how it is. It's at the end of the day, we're stuck with ourselves, and whether we choose to go to God or not is completely our decision. But what I'm saying is, if you're on the precipice, please reach out, call or text 988. Supernova's got the number. 988 is the number you get a hold of to get some help. And if you want to get sober, you can basically type in your city at this point, almost anywhere in the world, and type in your city AA central office or AA meetings, and you'll get a list of meetings. You'll get a central office phone number. And if you need immediate help, you can just call the central office and someone will talk to you and help you out. And you can go to a meeting, dude. I highly advise it. It's worthwhile, dude. I found them to be hugely beneficial to my life. And I found that the connections I've made via my relationship with AA has been super potent. Even though this is not a video promoting it, I will promote my relationship with AA and say that it has benefited me immensely. And it can for you. And I'm a non-joiner. I don't really like being part of groups. But the truth of the matter is when push comes to shove, I'd rather be part of that group than not. And that's where I stand with that. Is better to have a bunch of people that you can call for help versus nobody you can call for help. Right. And at the end of the day, like, most of this stuff is based upon just picking up the phone call and calling someone, dude. Just calling someone who relates. And I will tell you, if your struggle is drugs and alcohol, calling a stranger who doesn't know how to speak the language is kind of a foolhardy mission, dude. The self-deletion thing, I think, talk to anyone, dude. But like if drugs and alcohol, I think you need to they talk to people that relate. And because someone who suffers from overeating has a little bit of a different dilemma than someone who suffers from smoking crack, dude. I mean, the reason why are pretty similar on one level, dude, but the tools to get you out of that loop are a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? So picking up the phone call feels like lifting 1,000 pounds. So making a call can lift. Yeah, you can lift 2,000. It is the 10,000 pound phone is gnarly. Dude, 1,000 pound phone. I forget what was the weight of the phone. It's 1,000 pounds. Yeah, dude. And then you get used to it, and it just becomes another muscle, and you get your phone muscle on. Anyway, let's do the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. All right, man. We will, God willing, be back here next Wednesday. Like I said, use the name tags, be kind to your fellow men and women out there, and let's all move in the same direction towards the solution. Good night, and God has blessed us. Good night.